Hi boys and girls, today we're going to talk about ordering rational numbers 6.2D. The materials you'll need is your math journal and pencil. In your table of contents you're going to record ordering rational numbers 6.2D. Today's date is September 25th, 2020. Our learning target is I can order a set of rational numbers. What I want you to remember from our previous lesson is that everything to the right is a positive number and everything to the left is a negative number. Remember, we need to change our thinking when we're talking about negative rational numbers. The further away from zero it is, going to the left, the least amount of value it has. So negative 8 is less than negative 1. We're going to try something new. When you see this lilac pause, that means I want you to pause the video at some point and record what's on that page. So right now I'd like for you to pause and write this in your journal. How to order rational numbers. Number 1, you're going to change all numbers to the same form. Number 2, you're going to separate your positives and your negatives. And number 3, you're going to put them in ascending order. So the same form is either as a decimal, as a fraction, or as a percent. When you're separating your numbers, if you use a T-chart and put negatives on the left and positives on the right, that will help you. And remember, ascending order is increasing and descending is decreasing. The definition for ascending, it is increasing, so it's going from the lowest or the least amount to the greatest amount. You can also think of it as a set of stairs. You're going up. Descending is greatest to least, and it is going down. It is decreasing from the greatest number to the least. And again, you're going downstairs. You are descending. Alright, so now I want you to try it. Pause the video and complete the work. Come back and you can check it with me. Okay, so I decided to go with decimal form this time. I had 85 hundredths, 3/5. I divided 3 by 5 and got 6/10. 15 hundredths is good to go. And then 7/10, I knew I could rewrite it as a decimal by putting 7 in the tens place. Now, when you look at these different forms of rational numbers, I've changed them into decimal numbers. So one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that when we are comparing decimals, if you line up the decimals, it is so much easier to compare them. And one of the things that I like to do is put in zero placeholders. What I mean by is put a 0 here to make it a 2-digit behind the decimal and a 0 here. So all digits have 2 place values. So now when I look at this form, I can compare them. But I'm going to go a little bit further and I'm going to say, let's go ahead and write the original form next to it. So 3/5 was 6/10. That way when I'm writing it, that number is already recorded. And 7/10 was right here. Alright, so I am putting them in ascending order again, and that is least to greatest. So which one is the smallest? If I think in terms of money, 15 cents is definitely the least amount. So that is 15 hundredths is less than, the next least amount is 3/5, is less than 70 or 7/10, which is 7/10, is less than 85 hundredths. This is the correct order when you're putting them in order from least to greatest. Example 2, I want you to pause the video and write this information in your journal. Alright, so if you're looking at your rational numbers presented, you'll notice you have negatives and positives. So this time you're definitely going to do a T-chart and separate those. And then I think I'm going to go with a fraction. Nope, not a fraction. Let's go with the decimal representation. Because if I change them into decimals, 1/2 is a benchmark decimal, so I know that is 5/10. 1 4/10 is good to go. Negative 1 1/4 is a benchmark fraction. That's 25 hundredths. And then the other two numbers are okay. So I'm going to separate them, negatives and positives. My negatives are negative 1 25 hundredths and negative 2. My positives are 5/10, 1 1/4, and 1 95 hundredths. And remember, I'm going to add those trailing zeros, or not trailing zeros, but those place value zeros to make it easier to look at. And this number has 2. Okay? Alright, so if I have my number line, my negatives are to the left, and this is 0. So which number is closest to negative 0? I'm sorry, negative 0. I meant 0. It's negative 1 25 hundredths, which is negative 1 1/4. Okay? The next number is negative 2, and negative 2 is further away from 0, so this is the least amount, negative 2. On the right side, I have 5/10, 1 4/10, 1 95 hundredths. So I'm going to look at everything behind the decimal. I know that 5/10 is smaller. And then next, 1 4/10, and then 1 95 hundredths is actually the greatest amount. So which number do I need to convert on my number line? 1 1/4. This one right here was 1 1/2. So the order that it's in is negative 2 is less than 1 1/4, is less than 1 1/2, is less than 1 4/10, less than 1 95 hundredths. This is the order of my ascending numbers. Again, I'd like for you to pause, write this down, and you try it on your own, and then come back and check your work. Okay, so I wrote some things out for you to look at. I decided I was going to try and write it in fraction form. And I changed my 1 8/10 to 1 8/10 and 1 2/5. I multiplied the denominator and numerator by 2 to get 1 4/10. 1 9/10 is the same denominator. But when I got to negative 1 25 hundredths, I decided that that wasn't going to work because I cannot change that 100 into a denominator of 10 and make 25 work easily for me. So I decided not to go with that. I changed them all into decimal forms. I still use the same information because 1 4/10 is 1.4 and 1 9/10 is 1.9. So now they're all in decimal form. I do have negatives and positives, so I'm going to make a T-chart. And I'm going to put my negatives on the left side, which is negative 1 8/10 and negative 1 25 tenths. Ooh, let's clean that up a little bit. Let me just start over. Okay, I have negative 1 8/10 and negative 1 25 hundredths. These are my negatives. My positives were 1 4/10 and 1 9/10. And again, I'm going to add those trailing zeros to make it easier to look at. And now I'm ready to put them in order. So my number line is drawn. There's my 0. I'm going to start with my negatives. Which one is furthest away from 0? So remember, it is the larger number. So if I'm just looking at the number 1.80, I know that is more than 1.25. So my negative 1 8/10 is further than negative 1 25/100. On the right side are my positive numbers. Which number is closer to 0? 1 is right here, closer to 0. And then just a little past that is 1 4/10. And past 1 4/10 is 1 9/10. 1 9/10 is the greatest number. And negative 1 8/10 is the least amount. This is the order when I put them in order from least to greatest, ascending order. Alright, boys and girls, you're going to do some independent practice. If you need some help, be sure to reach out to your teachers. Remember the steps. Change them to the same form, decimal, fraction, or percent. Separate the positives and negatives. And drawing the number line and putting those on there will really help you when you're ordering. Alright, remember to contact us if you need help.